Yeah, I like talking. So about the spiritual stuff and things and my experiences, and I'm a channel for the Pleiadians. So I love sharing their information. A lot of people haven't heard of them, but the Pleiadians are similar to archangels.
Mm-hmm.
This is a collection of stories.
Landover Legend Studios presents
I've been through a lot.
the I Can't Make This Up podcast.
Yeah.
By Big C.
All right. So who actually gave you that name, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, it's a bit woo-woo, and believe it or not, I was actually meditating with a tree, and the tree gave me the name Soma. And then I came up to Google what it meant, because I had no idea, I'd never heard of it before. And then my guides were talking to me as I was Googling Soma. And then my guides gave me Arah. So it became Soma Arah.
Okay. So you actually got that after meditating. That's dope.
Yeah.
Soma Arah. I would like to thank you for joining me on today's edition of the I Can't Make This Up podcast. I appreciate you for taking the time out and, blessing me with your grace. And I really hope you enjoy yourself today.
Thank you, Terence. I'm really looking forward to being here and connecting with you and just chatting and talking. And it's lovely to meet you.
Same as well here. So why don't you introduce yourself to my audience if you don't mind?
Okay, sure. Well, I'm Soma Arah. I am a psychic medium, a channel for the Pleiadians since childhood, and I do quite a few things. I do healing, I do Reiki, I do the psychic, I do mediumship, and I also channel the Pleiadians. And most people haven't heard of the Pleiadians, but I like to keep things simple. And so I always describe them as being similar to archangels when people haven't heard of them before, just to keep things simple.
Okay. So if you don't mind, give me a little bit about your childhood and coming up and discovering your gift.
Well, I've never been normal. I've always had a very unusual life right from the get-go, right from my birth. I had an unusual birth. I had an unusual childhood. I had an extreme amount of trauma as a child. And I grew up in London, in the East End, which would be similar to the equivalent of the Bronx. And I had a lot of trauma, a lot of abuse, poverty, neglect. Alcoholic mum, was raped at the age of 12, became pregnant, lost the baby. And at the same time, I was on one hand, I was having these horrific traumatic experiences, but then on the other hand, at the same time, kind of coinciding with the traumatic experiences, I was having very lucid spiritual experiences with spirits, with my guides, with my granddad, with nature spirits, with mostly my guides singing to me and talking to me and giving me information. And a prime example of that is I was 8 years old and I had my mum's boyfriend laying on top of me, and he was drunk and stunk of whiskey. And he was a big, heavy guy, and he was laying on top of me, and I was underfed, undernourished, and I was 8, and I was very skinny, underweight, undernutrition. I wasn't eating enough food, and I couldn't breathe. I literally couldn't breathe, and I left my body. And the Pleiadians connected with me. And that lasted for a few minutes. And then I was back in my body. And I'd always remembered the abuse of that day, but I'd forgotten that I left my body and connected with the Pleiadians. And it was years later, when I was doing a shamanic course in Ireland, that I began to, over a number of years, 3 years I was doing the courses, with Paul O'Halloran, who's an amazing shaman in Ireland. And I began to have memories during ayahuasca and ceremonies of leaving my body as I was being abused. And that was an occurrence for me throughout my childhood, right up until the age of, I guess, 16. And there's one experience I'd really like to share with you where I was on the verge of committing suicide, and I was 12. And I mean, my childhood really was extreme. It wasn't the normal, go to school and come home and do homework childhood. And none of my life has actually been a normal life. And I've always longed for that. I've always longed for the normal, whatever that is, but I don't think I'm ever going to get it. And I'm 47 now, and it doesn't look like it's going to come anytime soon. But I was 12 years old. I was laying on my mattress on the floor because that's all I had. And I'll never forget the layout of the room. And I'll describe that in a minute. But I got to a point, I was 12 years old, and I'd been abused since I was in the cot, And I was actually born in South Africa, and we moved to Ireland, and we moved to London eventually, where I grew up. But I was actually abused since I was in the cot. And I have a lot of blocked memories. Most of them I don't remember. From the age of about 9, I can remember things. But I do remember that one experience when I was 8. So anyway, sorry, I'm kind of veering off subject there.
You're fine.
But I thanks, Terence. So I'd got to the point where I was 12 years old, and I just wanted out. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to know anything. I didn't want to do anything. I just was done. I wanted out. I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to tell anyone. It wasn't a cry for help. So I went into my room, and I just cried my eyes out. I was retching with emotion and tears and crying and snot and all of it. And the next thing I knew, because I was deciding on taking tablets, and the next thing I knew, I was in the right-hand corner of my room, looking down on my body. And I went through a tunnel of lights, and Jesus came to me and took me on a very long journey for about 3 or 4 hours. I was gone, and showed me my life and the karma that I had created, and that everything that I was experiencing was actually, and this is hard for a lot of people to get, but everything I was experiencing was in order for my own spiritual personal growth, and that one day it would be okay. And when he understood that I got it, that I could see myself and my life journey and my experiences and my karma, and that everything was divine, that I had chosen it, that I had come here to do this journey. When he understood that I got it on a deep level, then he showed me the bigger picture for humanity. And then when I came back, I was totally blissful for about 3 or 4 weeks, and it gradually ebbed away. But that experience really changed my life. It changed my perspective, and it changed me internally, because when I came back, I was blissful in a very different state to how I was before I fell asleep or had the out-of-body experience. So it was a wake-up call for me, really.
So at that moment when you fell asleep and you went on that journey, you kind of woken up. It was almost like a spiritual awakening, and you recognizing, your life for what it is, and I guess you found a new purpose through that.
Yeah, that was a huge experience for me, and it was very blissful, very extreme bliss, just pure bliss. And it really, I saw things from a different perspective. I saw things from a higher perspective, from a blissful perspective, that everything was perfect. And yes, the experiences I had were traumatic, and a lot of people have them. A lot of children have those experiences. and I don't talk about them, not until they're in adulthood, and sometimes not even then. So I'm not dismissing how traumatic it was, because it was, but for me, with that experience, it gave me a different perspective. I was able to view it from a different perspective. So it gave me a different perspective, a different understanding. It put me into a state of bliss. It's changed my whole understanding. It was, I guess you could call it a spiritual awakening, where it was a huge lesson for me, a huge lesson. And if it hadn't have been for that, I would have taken tablets. I wouldn't be here. Absolutely wouldn't be here.
Yes, I mean it's almost like what's that saying? You gotta go through the worst to come out to the best version of yourself. So, you know, thank God that did happen, and you're still able to be here with us today. And so after that, where did life take you from that point?
Wow. I started meditating after that, and I didn't have secondary schooling, because I tried to go to the secondary school, and the Pleiadians actually put a wall of energy in front of me. So I would get to the school, and the school gates were huge. They were maybe 20, 30 feet across, and as tall as well. And there were huge, big black gates, and they were wrought iron. And I just used to go sometimes and stand in front of them, and I wouldn't be able to move. There was like a wall of energy placed in front of me where I just couldn't move. And I've had it since then. I've sometimes been almost involved in a car accident, and then this wall of energy will come over me where I just can't move. So I wasn't able to drive the car, which was a good thing, because if I had have, I would have been in the accident, but I was held in this vortex of energy where I couldn't move. And that's another experience I had, where I remembered in the shamanic courses that they had said to me, word for the Pleiadians had said to me, word for word, we couldn't let you enter the school system because otherwise you would have been lost to us. You would have been lost to us. So I didn't have any secondary education within academia or anything. I used to stay home and meditate, which was very unusual for a 12-year-old, but that's what I did. And I would go to the library, and I got all the books I could get, mostly the esoteric books. And I would read those. I would just stay at home in my room and read, basically. And I did that from the age of 12 until 16, and then I left and became homeless in London, and for a couple of months, I think, maybe a couple of months or a year. I wasn't sleeping rough. I was in hostels and things, so I'd never slept rough at that age. And then I got into drugs and drink and alcohol, and was having crazy parties and a wild time. And then I came out of that scene in my early 20s and began healing, began going to spiritualist churches. And I kind of went on from there.
So, explain to me a spiritualist church. I've heard of them, but I never actually attended myself.
Oh, you should go, Terence. They're really great. They're a great way to develop the psychic and the mediumship, and they're a great way to connect in with loved ones in spirit as well. Most of them are run on donations or a very small fee, and you should go. They're really great places to begin connecting with spirit and loved ones and mediumship and psychic awareness. And most of them have like an open circle group and a closed group. An open circle is where it's open to everyone, and a closed group is where you have to get an invite.
Okay. So, at any point along your journey at this time, did you ever have any misconceptions about the spirits that was communicating with you? Like, were you ever fearful at any time, thinking that it might be something negative or anything like that?
Um, not when I was younger, no. But as an adult, um, I've had negative experiences with negative spirits because they're as above, so below. When there's light, there's dark. When there's sweet, there's sour. When there's anything that exists in the universe always has an opposite. So if there's angels, then there's demons. If there's good spirit, then there's bad spirit. There's always an opposite. Always, it's a natural law. So I have had experiences with dark energies and dark spirits. But I think that's been part of my learning, because I'm learning to understand all the time about us, about spirit, about our nature of reality, about just everything. And the more I learn, the less I realize how much I know about anything.
Okay. So, in these, I'll say, in the you're after on a, I guess you could say the second part of your life after joined the spiritual church, did it give you an opportunity to travel and kind of get a different perspective on life by visiting different cities or anything like that?
Yeah, I've had kind of different stages in my life where I've done very different things. And it really has never been normal. And I've always craved that. I think I still probably do crave it. But I have spent a period traveling and backpacking around Europe and seeing different places. And I don't really go so much now to the spiritualist churches, but I used to go at least 2 or 3 times a week when I was going, just to develop the mediumship side of things and the psychic awareness and everything. And they are great places to develop. Some of them can be quite cliquey, and I don't like that so much. Some of them there's a lot of jealousy there in some of them, not all of them, but some of them. And I don't like the rules and regulations so much, but it is a great place to develop mediumship. With the traveling, yeah, I went on to travel and backpack for about a year, ended up living in Gibraltar. I had a beautiful flat, sharing a flat on the top of a block of flats in Gibraltar that overlooked Morocco and Spain. It was an amazing view, a beautiful view. I'll never forget it, that view. Ended up marrying a Tibetan monk and living in London. And yeah, I've done quite a few unusual things.
Okay. What was it like? What was it like being married to a monk? I haven't met one, but I've seen videos and read a lot about them.
I wouldn't recommend it. This is why I'm divorced.
Okay. Well, was it like something major that made your relationship fall apart, or was it a difference in belief, or what?
Well, I'd previously become a Buddhist a couple of years before I married him. I was living in Edinburgh and attending spiritualist churches and everything, and I wanted to go for a little retreat, and the nearest one from Edinburgh was in Holy Island, which was off the Isle of Arran. So you had to get to the mainland, which was a train ride, and then you had to get a bus to the big island, and then you had to get a bus and a little ferry to the little island, which was tiny. It took 3 hours to walk around the whole thing, and there was no traffic. There was nothing. There was just this big retreat center in Holy Island, which was a Buddhist retreat center. and I planned to go for 2 weeks as a volunteer. And as I was packing, my guides had said to me, "You're going for a lot longer than 2 weeks." And I kind of just said, "Yeah, okay, whatever." And I ended up staying for 2 years, and I loved it. It really, really benefited. I really benefited a lot from it, because I still had a lot of anger because of my childhood, and I was still suffering from depression at the time because of my childhood. Because depression is really anger that's pushed down. That's why it's depression. You push down anger and other emotions. That's what I found for me anyway. So I ended up on Holy Island, and a lot of my anger came out. I was able to work through a lot of anger, which I wouldn't have been able to do in normal society. But I was living in a Buddhist center, and was allowed to be myself and allowed to be angry. So a lot of my stuff came up to the surface, and I worked through that for a couple of years. But anyway, I stayed 2 years, and I ended up becoming a Buddhist, and I took my vows and shaved my hair. I was on the verge of becoming a Buddhist nun, an Annie, and I didn't. Instead, I went off to Nepal and worked in a soup kitchen for homeless children mostly, and also adults. So I did that for about a year and a half, and I met someone. I met a monk and ended up marrying him, and then coming back to live in London. And so I got to see that I got to see that. I mean, I don't normally share my personal stuff, but it's kind of coming up now. So I kind of got to see that not all. I mean, he was a monk that had become a monk because he didn't have many other options. He was from rural Tibet, and it was either a monk or poverty. So he wasn't really given much of a choice, really. So he decided to become a monk. I don't think he was suited to monkhood. His character was very questionable, and he basically wasn't a very good person, let alone a good monk. So I decided to leave, and I left and went to Ireland and began channeling the Pleiadians, basically.
That's dope. It sounds like you actually got to see, quite a few beautiful places. Was there ever any language barriers in the places you traveled to or even lived?
Sometimes, but it's funny because you can communicate with someone without language.
Mm-hmm.
There's body language, there's facial expressions, there's hand movements. I don't think I've ever had a problem really not being able to communicate with someone. You can get across to someone, what you're trying to express to them without speaking the same language.
Mm-hmm. You can eventually form some type of line of communication once you figure out what their, I guess you could say, rhythm or their understanding is when it comes to communicating and everything. So with all that, and you experiencing different things and dealing with emotional past, have you ever like talked to like a therapist or anything like that, or is it something you kind of strayed away from and decided to like figure it out yourself?
Well, from a young age, my guides would talk to me from a very young age, probably from when I was in the cots. So that was always my first port of call. And it was them that I turned to. It was them that I talked to do with things like the trauma and abuse and the rape and the poverty and neglect and all of that stuff, because I didn't really have anyone else to turn to. So it was always, spirit has always been my first port of call when I've got a problem. That's who I go to. So, and I really admire people that have gone through trauma and abuse and rape as children, because I have no idea how they get through that without spirit. Because I wouldn't have got through it without spirit.
Well, I think that you can't really get over something, or I can't say to get over something. I mean, once you had your life, you know, shattered like that, it can be profound, but at the same time, it's something that most people would say that, God doesn't put you through anything you can't handle. Not to saying that anyone deserves anything bad or negative to happen to them, but you really see who's strong after you listen to their stories and you compare it to someone who has an issue, or like who's having car trouble or relationship issues. Like there are people that are living on a few grains of rice a day, and people complain about their food being cold or something like that. Like you really don't know what rough is until you've seen it or lived it.
Yeah, yeah, that's really true, Terence. We don't realize how good we have it until we don't have it that good. I remember because I have had extreme poverty and not had food to eat in my childhood. I really appreciate food these days, and um, but forgiveness is a big key to it. It's a huge key. I remember there was a lady that had her son was murdered in London. It was a big international case years ago, and he'd been murdered. He was black, and he'd been murdered by a group of evil white kids, and he'd been stabbed to death. And the mum had actually forgiven the people that did it. She forgave them, and you could really see when she was doing the interviews, you could really see that she had forgiven them. She'd really forgiven. I mean, they'd taken her son away from her. There's nothing worse than grief and losing a loved one. And she'd forgiven them. And I think forgiveness is the key to healing the trauma. It's key to healing trauma. And yes, we all go through little things like where our food is cold, or the car doesn't work, or the bus didn't show up, or someone didn't turn up for an interview or a date, or we all get the little stuff as well. But we've all got different karmas. We've all got different karma. We've all got our own individual karma. So sometimes we don't need to go through the big traumas. We just need to go through the little things. And that's okay as well. There's nothing wrong with going through the little stuff and having relationship issues. And that's not even to say it's little stuff with relationship issues, because it may be big lessons for us that we need to learn. And I think whatever we need to learn is what we're learning, because we need to learn it. I just think that I think the whole thing is really beautiful, of karma and choices, and our soul contract, I think, is what I'm saying is beautiful, our soul contract. And half the time, most people aren't even aware that it is a soul contract that we've made, that we choose our parents, that we choose our situation, good or bad or indifferent. We choose all of it before we get here. And I think that's beautiful, that we choose it and we get to choose it. And I also believe in past lives as well, and all of that stuff. So yeah.
I'm sorry, you were breaking up. What did you say?
I know the interview is supposed to do with me, but I'm interested in hearing from you as well. What experiences have you had? Spiritual ones, or
Spiritual ones. As a child, I dealt with moments where I felt um, like I was halfway asleep, or I felt like I was awake, but I couldn't move, and my mind was talking, and I was trying to move, and people would say, that's like some type of spirit holding you down and trying to prevent you from doing something positive or something like that. And that kind of messed with me, as a kid. And, it made me do some research and everything. And there's a scientific explanation to things. And, there's a more, astrological approach to it. So, when it comes to things like that, it's like who knows at the end of the day what it was. My personal belief is, seeing is believing, and also there's also some unexplainable things out here. There are UFO sightings and things like that, the pyramids, the fact that we haven't explored like 80% of the ocean, so it's up in the air, for me. So, until I, set my eyes on it, or, I've had that experience, I kind of just go with the flow of life.
Yeah, there's so much we don't know. I mean, like you were saying, we've only explored 80% of the world's oceans, and who knows what's down there in the dark depths. And I guess you could say the same. Well, you could say the same thing for space, and the universe. There is we actually know nothing about anything when you think of it. And I've had that experience as well that you were talking about, where you are awake but you just can't move. You can't move your body. I've had experiences like that. When I first began to channel the Pleiadians, I was having those experiences, and I really don't do things by halves. I was saying, but so I was having these experiences where I was lying in bed and held in this. It was like the vortex of energy earlier. It's similar, where I get held in this vortex of energy. But I was laying in bed, and I couldn't move. My eyes were open. I was awake. I wasn't asleep. And for me, I don't believe it was sleep paralysis. But I could hear this sound, this humming, this whirling sound, and it was like a buzzing or a hum. And it got louder and louder and louder, and it got so loud that it was no longer outside of me. It was actually internal. It was inside me, this sound, this humming, and I couldn't move. And I felt something was about to happen. And I don't know if it was good or bad, but I just didn't want it to happen, whether it was good or bad. And I couldn't open my mouth. I couldn't do anything. All I could move were my eyes, sorry. And I was screaming, my whole body screamed no. So whatever was going to happen, I stopped it from happening, or it stopped happening because I didn't want to go there. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know if I was going up into a craft, because people often, when I channel the Pleiadians, I often get this sound, this whirring, this humming to some degree. And I think at the time I was just having it to a high degree, where I was going to be taken into a ship or a craft or something. And I think that sound, that humming, is to do with UFO frequencies, to do with alien frequencies, whether it's technology or energy or whatever it is. Because it's so often commonly reported that there's a humming, there's a whirring, there's a frequency, there's a buzzing, there's a sound when people have experiences of being taken, or UFOs, or sightings, or abductions. There's a connection between both positive and negative aliens, with the sounds, the humming. So have you ever had the sound?
Not that I could remember. Nothing that definitive. And I mean, I've met people who have, sworn that they have seen like a ship in the sky that was there 1 second, and then kind of, I don't want to say color shifted, but then started to blend in with the sky. Um, as far as I know, seeing is believing. But in my personal experience, I don't think that the stories that we read or the movies that we saw are all made up. Mankind is very creative, but a lot of stuff is from experience. Whether the details change or not. So yes, I do believe in life outside this planet. I can't prove it because at this point it's spectral, at this point.
Yeah, there's so much we don't know, and there's a lot of different aspects there to what you're speaking. But also there is the Greg Braden, one of the major scientists, has discovered that our DNA has been engineered. It's not possible that we were created naturally or that we just suddenly evolved naturally. It's been proven now through science that our DNA was engineered, was manipulated, was changed at a certain point in history, which could only have been done by deliberately, could only have been done deliberately. So there's so much that we don't know. And there's, our whole history of what we're taught, everything that we're taught in school is a complete lie. Everything is the opposite of what we're told. Even coming down to the very basic stuff like auras, which are, the scientific term would be electromagnetic energy field. And so everything we're taught is a lie, and the very opposite is true. But then also with their science fiction movies, they do that on purpose, because the science fiction movies are actually science fact. And most of the movies that are like that are based on, there's a lot of truth in it, a lot of truth. When you look at films like, or series like Star Trek and what's the other one? Avatar. A lot of them are based on science fact and made into films, because the truth is so unbelievable that most people don't believe it, because they've been conditioned and dumbed down through the school system on purpose, deliberately, to believe one thing when the very opposite is true. So we've been lied to on a mass scale. We've been hoodwinked. We've been led down the garden path. We've been deceived. We've been manipulated. We've been lied to on a mass scale, and it starts in the school systems. And I was very lucky, very fortunate that the Pleiadians kept me out of the school system. And they did say to me, because you would have been lost to us. You would have been lost to us. I would have ended up being conditioned and dumbed down and manipulated and controlled like all the other kids. Whether they were black, white, Hispanic, or whatever, But one thing I got from my childhood that I always really value, probably the only thing, is that I grew up in an environment where within the school system, within my secondary school system, I was probably the only white kid there. And I've always been so grateful for that, because it gave me a different perspective of other cultures, other colors, other creeds, other religions. Taking into the fact that my stepdad was white and very racist, to the point of having a low IQ. I mean, the guy was a complete idiot. So that was one thing, the positive thing that I can take from my childhood, as well as the spiritual stuff. Was growing up in an environment that had so many different, beautiful, colorful people and cultures and races and nationalities and creeds and religions. It was like a mixing pot of everyone,
Mm-hmm.
And I loved it. I loved that aspect of it.
So, are you still in contact with any of your friends from school?
Hell no.
I'm assuming from your laugh or your response that was by choice.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there would have been. I often think of them. I remember my first boyfriend was um, a big black guy with a big nose, and he was beautiful. And he wasn't really. I mean, I called him my boyfriend, but he used to nick my lunch money.
Wow.
um, he was called Big Nose Alistair, but he was such a beautiful guy. Like just had a beautiful spirit. And yeah, there are. Then there was another boy that I used to play chess with in my secondary school. So there are one or two people, maybe three or four people that I would have liked to have kept touch with from my primary school, which was my second primary school in Dalston, called Princess May, which was a lovely school, beautiful teachers. And because my mum had to take me out of my first primary school because I was getting bullied like nothing, and like terribly bullied. And they just didn't like me. They thought I was weird and had a witch as a mum, which was probably quite true. But I really got bullied for it. And I got beaten up by a little boy about the same age as me, who was really tough. And so she put me into a different primary school, which was like half an hour down the road in Dalston it was. And so this, but when I left, I mean, I had such a terrible childhood. When I left when I was 16, and I didn't want anything to do with anyone, even my own family for a while, and just walked away from all of it. It was so dysfunctional. It was so poverty. It was so racist. It was so, I just didn't want to be in that energy. I didn't belong to that energy. I wasn't coming from that space. I wasn't, that wasn't me. I couldn't be any further from that kind of dysfunction, racism, low IQ energy, harsh. I always call that type of energy harsh energy. It's like a lower vibration. It's, yeah. So I walked away. I didn't want anything to do with anyone or any of that stuff, although there are people I would have liked to have kept in touch with.
Okay. So, over the past couple, let's say the last 10 years, life has done 360 after 360 on an international scale, and things just aren't the same. We have, great advancements in technology, and some of it benefiting the health field and things of that nature. You see growth in kids actually going to college and things like that. How is it there in Portsmouth? And in your opinion, from 2019 till now, how much have things changed outside of just everyone going through this global pandemic?
Oh my God, Terence, I think the world has completely changed. I think it's upside down, back to front. I think it's nothing like it was. And we're not going back to it. I think everything is changing. I think everything needs to change. I think everything is crumbling down around us. Our governments, our food, our education, our petrol, petrol's kind of not in that group, but everything is falling away. Everything is falling away, and people are either going with the flow and handling it, or they're getting very depressed and suicidal and they're not handling it, and they're choosing to opt out. And we are in the precipice of humanity changing. We are in the great awakening of humanity and a consciousness, a mass consciousness awakening. I mean, this is epic. What we're going through has never happened before on Earth, and it probably will never happen again, not in the way that it's happening now, given our technology, and that we are able to, that you and I, all of us are able to connect from the other side of the world at any time of day, pushing a few buttons on a machine, on a flat piece of equipment, laptop, but so we've never had a time period that we're in at the moment. And my guides, or the Pleiadians, often say to me that this is a reversal of what happened in Atlantis. So Atlantis, that they were on the precipice of a mass awakening, and it didn't go well because the negative agenda, the negative powers that be, were still in a place where they could manipulate them and dumb them down. But we today, this is the reversal of Atlantis. So we are in a space where we are going back to a time of Atlantis energy, or rather we are even leapfrogging over the time of Atlantis and our awareness, because we were very evolved beings in the time of Atlantis. We had a higher IQ, we had a higher everything. We were taller, we were illumined beings. Our DNA was our original DNA before it had been changed. The earth was on her natural axis. And so let me explain for the viewers that the time of Atlantis, a large meteor came in and hit the earth and shook the earth off her natural axis, causing great catastrophic events and lands to shift, which also created Antarctica at the time with all the covering of the ice and everything. So, and also negative ET energy came in and overthrew the Atlanteans, dumbed them down, manipulated our DNA, changed our DNA, severed our galactic connection because at the time everyone could communicate with star beings and cosmic beings from different planets and different star systems and suns and moons and wherever there's life in the universe, we were all able to communicate with each other. And the negative agenda that came in and overthrew the Atlanteans stopped through severing our DNA, let me rephrase that. So through changing our DNA, they severed our cosmic connection, where we were able to communicate with all of us, were able to communicate with our galactic star beings, star brothers. And now we are going into a time where the reversal of Atlantis. So we are, and it's not even the reversal of Atlantis, because we are going beyond what we used to have. We used to have a higher IQ, we used to have a higher consciousness, we used to have a higher DNA, we used to have higher everything, even to the point of being taller. So we are going beyond that now, and that is what this time is about. The time on Earth at the moment is been written about in so many different prophecies and prophesized about, especially with the Rainbow Warrior people, who we are now, and we've been lied to on a mass scale, and that there is no divide between white and black, between young and old, between us. We are each other. We are brothers and sisters. There is one humanity. There's a great meme on Facebook where you've got a Labrador in different various colors. I don't know if you've seen it, but you've got the beige, you've got all like 5 or 6 different colors of the Labrador. And I think that's such a great meme, because that really represents who we are. We are brothers and sisters. We are, and we need to unite. We need to unite. And that's critical for this time on Earth at the moment, because we are being run by negative ET energy. This is what I've been shown by the Pleiadians, is that we are being, and I was shown this in 2009, and it took me a couple of years, because it was so profound to me that it blew the socks off me. It blew my own beliefs out of the water, because what they had said to me when I started channeling them in 2009 or around then is that everything we've been taught is a lie, and that all systems on Earth are run by negative ET energy. All systems on Earth are run by negative ET energy. And it took me a couple of years to process that, because that includes governments, that includes big pharma, that includes military, that includes everyone at the top who's running the show, from millionaires to big pharma, to governments, to the military, to the Queen, to everyone. Every society on Earth is run by negative ET energy. So it took me a while to process that information, because that's a real game changer. So the principles that the negative agendas are working with is to divide us, put brother against brother, man against man, white against black, east against west, north against south, is to keep the old negative energy, to keep it dumbed down, to keep it controlled, to keep it at war, to keep it fighting with itself, rich against poor, young against old, black against white. And that's what they want. So we need to realize that we come from the same source. We bleed the same red color. We come from the same source. We are children of God. We have had so many thousands upon thousands, if not millions of lifetimes, where we have been black, we have been white, we've been young, we've been old, we've been the victim, we've been the perpetrator, we've been the richest of the rich, we've been the poorest of the poor, we've been the victim, we've been the perpetrator. There is nothing on this earth that we haven't experienced, that we haven't had lifetimes of. And sometimes it's been lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime of the same energy. And then we've decided to change that and maybe step into a different energy for a lifetime or two or three or four. So we need to really recognize, really understand that we are children of God. We are children of God, and that there is no difference between us. And when we really get that and stop fighting each other, whether it's black against white or rich against poor or young against old or east against west or north against south or whatever it is, it's bullshit. Excuse my French, but it is. And it's sad. It's really sad to see that people fighting against each other because of this color of their skin, or because they're poor, or because whatever reason. It's bullshit. It is complete bullshit. There's nothing could be further of the truth. We bleed the same. We shit the same. You know, I'm sorry for my language, but it really gets to me that people can't see, or some people can't see beyond the illusion, because it's an illusion, you know. And it really gets to me because it's so sad that some people can't see that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I'll just pause there because I could go on and on and on.
You're fine, Soma. I agree with you. I think that on a mass scale, there are people who just want to blend in and, do their 9 to 5, stay out of trouble, or at least that's what they consider as staying out of trouble, and, just live life like it's, like they're another number or whatever. And that's fine for them. But the individuals who actually see that there's a problem with the way things are going, those are the heroes among society, people who actually see wrong, recognize it, and want to put a stop to it. But when you have people who only want life to be under, a classism society, that's what holds every progress back to us, getting to a point where there could actually be worldwide peace. But it's almost like a yin yang thing. Like you said earlier, as above, so below. You can't have light without dark. It's when the darkness is 75% of what's consuming what we, call life. And that's what it seems like. And I don't think that anyone should, give up on hope that life can be better than what it is right now, because you can turn it around. Sometimes it takes patience, sometimes it takes meditation, sometimes it takes prayer, but it all takes time. And, having someone or something to, give you the strength to keep going and, get past the dark times that you're going through right now.
I think we are in an age of an Aquarius where we are going from dark to light. Everything is changing around us, and we're seeing that in not just in a spiritual sense, but we're seeing it in a very physical 3D way, where normal people are now waking up and seeing that life is, or the world is not the way they thought it was. You know, it's life is not how, or the earth is not how they thought it was, and we're seeing that play out. So what we're actually seeing play out is the very energy, is the very end of an era. It's the end of an energy. It's an end of politics as we know it. It's an end of, it's to do with the 26,000 years alignment of stars lining up, and the universe is changing and learning and growing and adapting, as are we, which is to do with our galactic brothers and sisters, which would be beings like the Pleiadians and Syrians, and because we are all connected, and we used to have such a strong relationship and bond and connection with them. We used to even the normal lay people used to be able to have a dialogue, have a conversation with them in the past, and that was severed. So we are, I mean, what's happening on Earth is beautiful. It's because it has such huge, it's not limited to Earth. The whole universe is changing and adapting and creating itself anew, and consciousness is expanding, and we are seeing that play out on a very physical level in the 3D on Earth, with everything that's going on and occurring with the masks and the vaccines and this and that, and some of it is unbelievable and unbuyable. You can't buy into it, you know, because it's nonsense. And there is, I mean, it really is a mass awakening of humanity, and there's been so many prophecies written about it and so much information. But we are becoming illumined beings. Our frequency is changing, our awareness is changing, our consciousness is changing, our DNA is changing, our blood is changing, our hair is changing. We are becoming evolved beings. We are taking a step into evolution. And this affects not only humans on Earth, but it affects the whole universe and our galactic brothers and sisters, like the Pleiadians and Syrians and Arcturians and all the different species that we have living in the universe, which is one of the biggest lies we've been led to believe, is that we are alone in the universe. Actually, everything is the opposite of what we've been taught in school. The very opposite is true. And all systems on Earth, I've been told, are run by negative ET energy, including the royal families, including the politics in all countries, including the military, including the big pharma, including the big supermarket chains, all the systems on Earth, because the supermarkets are the system on Earth, because they've been weaponized against us on a mass scale. There's nothing you can buy in a supermarket these days, nothing that is not contaminated or with chemicals or poisoned or toxins and poisons in the food, in the water, in the soil. Everything has been weaponized against us. So all of that is falling away and coming down, which is why we'll see food shortages, which is why we'll see water shortages, because everything is falling away. Everything needs to crumble, everything needs to burn up, to fall at our feet, for us to see the truth, for on a mass scale, for the normal people to see the truth on a mass scale. It needs to be blatantly visible for the lay people, for the normal people to see, who aren't awake, who aren't aware, who aren't psychic, who aren't mediums, who are just normal, average, everyday Joe down the road, who has no awareness or believes himself to have no awareness or psychic ability or mediumship, or believes himself to have no awareness of anything. Things need to get so bad that that person, Joe down the road, needs to be aware that something is going on here. So it needs to be extreme. They say it's always darkest before the dawn. It's always darkest before the dawn. So, I mean, it's beautiful the time on Earth that we're going through now because of the mass scale of that it's going to create in the universe. And it is a mass scale of, it's not a little thing. It's not restricted to Earth. Having said that, it's painful to witness people's reaction to it and people's pain in it, especially when you've got so many people committing suicide or losing their homes or becoming bankrupt or in depression or in suicide or in a negative states of mind, because they're not seeing or feeling or sensing or knowing the bigger picture, that everything is actually designed to be this way, and we designed it this way. We chose on a soul level, on a higher level, to come here, to witness this, to be part of it, to be game changers, to speak up and say, this is not okay, what's been happening on Earth for millions, for thousands of years, millions of years, that we've been ruled by negative alien beings. That's really been what's been going on. And I know that how that crazy that sounds. I really do, because I was one of those people that that actually laughed at that. The first time I heard the Queen was an alien or reptilian, I laughed. So I know how crazy that sounds, but it you know, when you go into this stuff and you start doing research and you go down the rabbit hole, it is endless. It's Pandora's box. It's never ending. Nothing is the way we thought it was. We have been asleep as a human race. Humanity has been asleep for such a long time, and now we are waking up on a mass scale, and it is painful. It is a bloody birth. It is a painful birth. It is agony for some people, and it doesn't have to be that way. You know, if we can just step into ourselves and our center and come from the heart and find that space in you, because we all have that space in us. It's part of, or an aspect of the soul space that you can step into, where you are untouchable. And I guess I did this as a kid with the abuse. I would step into this space that was where no one could touch me mentally or emotionally. Like there was a part of me that no one could get to, that you probably would call, or people would call, a soul aspect, where it's quiet, it's peaceful, it's blissful, it doesn't need any words. It's you, it's your spirit. Step into your spirit, step into your heart energy. And that's how we actually get through these times on Earth now, by stepping into the heart energy, into the love frequency, which is actually measurable. And if it's measurable, it means you can step into it and step out of it, which is something that the negative agenda doesn't want us to do. Because if we were to do that en masse, things would change in an instant, in a second, in a nanosecond, globally around the Earth. There would be a shockwave of love and light, and that is a game changer. That is why the negative agenda keeps us in, or wants to keep us in, warring against each other, whatever the excuse is, whether it's racism or poverty or war or religion or whatever it is. Because all those strings that they play are all played by the same people at the top. There's not many of them at the top. Yeah. Sorry, Terence. I could just talk and talk and talk.
No, no need to apologize. You're fine. You know, I always give my guests the freedom to speak their mind, you know, to whatever that may be. So please, no need to apologize. I did want to ask, so it's incredible the way that you perceive things, and you have an understanding of, you know, what's on the other side of the veil, that everyday people, you know, aren't privy to, or they don't, you know, really care to know, because they kind of, you know, want to walk the path that they're walking, and that's fine. What's every day now like for you, as far as being in your city and everything like that? Like I'm assuming that you probably work from home due to everything that's going on in the world, and like we mentioned earlier, it's probably not that much human contact outside of virtual meetings and things like that.
Well, um, the UK is quite strict. But I've always thought that the UK is it has a lot of rules and regulations compared to some of the other countries. Ireland is more of a relaxed, or used to be more of a relaxed, kind of older, worldly, going back to our granny's era, and that's kind of still like that, although it's changed in the last couple of years drastically, where the negative agenda has a huge hold over people in Ireland. But in the UK, in the area I'm living in Portsmouth, in the south, people are just living their lives, and a lot of people are still wearing masks. The majority are not in my area, but people are just going about their daily lives and trying to make the best of it and get through it the best they can. So I'm not sure what's going on in London, but people are just, either going with it or not going with it. People are just doing the best that they can, and just doing the best they can. There has been some food shortages in the UK and my local area, with water and toilet paper as ever, and other food things, but nothing severe yet. It just seems to be like water seems to get through slowly. So it's a pretty quiet area. It's, there's no dead bodies dropping dead in the street, which you would expect if it was a pandemic, I believe. So, but also one thing I would like to say is that, I mean, this is such basic stuff, and yet it's such a big thing as well, especially at the moment, where just because we have a difference of opinion, we don't need to go to war over it. We don't need to have arguments over it. We don't need to do anything. We don't need to even have an argument about it. We can just simply have a different opinion. And that should be a natural thing. It was a natural thing. And somewhere along the line, we've been conditioned to believe that because someone has a different opinion than us, that we need to fight and establish our opinion and make the other person wrong. And that's also one of the principles they're working on, to divide us. And we really need to come together and be united.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's a lot of ego that goes along with the human condition. And because that's, what's popular, that's what, you know, uh, the the wealthy cliques of the world have to have things going their way, and then if it doesn't, then it changes their lifestyle. So because of their lifestyle and the way that they view the world outside of somebody who's working a 9 to 5 like you and I, you know, they don't care. They don't have empathy because they never been in that position. They can have a slight understanding, but they'll never really know what it's like to make a decision whether to put gas in your car or feed yourself. They never understood that. So stripping everything down back to the basic minimums would be great, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. I am very proud of the changes I see in the world, but at the rate things are going, it's going to be a few generations before we actually see the things that we hope about and we dream about, today.
I yeah, I mean, I remember my granny and my granddad, and I remember how she used to do everything. He had a different role, but he did just as much, but in a different way. But she was very physical, and she used to make her own butter, her own cheese. She came from a farming background. Both my grandparents did, from Ireland, from a poor farming background. So they used to make everything. They used to have their own chickens, their own cows, their own sheep, and they used to make butter and milk and cheese and all of it. And nobody ever went farther than the local village, And or most of them. I mean, some of my relatives did go over to America and Australia, but really, in my granny's era, it was a blessing. And I think we are really starting to see that now, how there's such a value in having a small local community where you do make your own food and your bread and your milk and your cheese and your eggs that are free from chemicals, where you have your own clean water supply. And I do see us going back to our granny's era, living in small local communities, having our own food supply, having our own water, having our own clean, just a cleaner environment. I do see us going back to that. And that's what we need to go back to. We need to go back to not relying on big pharma, not relying on the big supermarkets, not relying on the big chains for anything. Having a smaller community, having a local, smaller environment where we are community-led, and if we don't have something, then we can go to our local neighbours and see if we can get something from them. But coming away from big pharma, coming away from big supermarkets, coming away from, because everything has been taken away from us. We've been made, we've been forced, we've been led down a road where we have become reliant on getting water, getting our milk, getting our meats, getting our bread. And then we need to work 9 to 5 to pay the bills, pay the gas, pay the electric, pay all of these things. And which, excuse me, that is not a life. We are not born to work and then die. Sometimes no better off than when we were born, having worked our whole life, So we're going back to smaller local communities. And I think that's where we're going. And I think that's where we need to go. And I think that will become inevitable at some point, because I do believe that money is going to become non-existent. I do believe that the governments will fall, all of them around the world. I do believe that religion will fall. And the Catholic Church has been one of the biggest atrocities that I believe in creating a divide and creating separation, including separation from God. And the Catholic Church has a lot to answer for. The Pope has a lot to answer for. And I think we need to just let go of the idea that we've been sold to, and stop looking outside of ourselves for the answer, whether it's a doctor, whether it's a priest, whether it's a shaman, whether it's a psychic, whoever it is, including myself. We need to stop looking outside of ourselves for the answer and start looking inside of ourselves and connecting to that piece of ourselves that has all the answers, that divine spark, that innate soul essence within all of us. We all have that. We are all divine beings of God. We are all children of God, and we've given away our power for far too long. We really have, and there's so many different aspects of what's going on now, so many different aspects. But the main thing is, the root of it is that we are on the precipice of a mass awakening, a mass consciousness upgrade, shifting up into a higher dimension, into a higher frequency, where none of this stuff in the 3D actually matters. Doesn't matter at all. This is the matrix. This is part of the matrix that we are born into and led to believe that if you can't see it, if you can't touch it, if you can't taste it, if you can't smell it, it's not real. When actually the very opposite is true. We come from spirit. We come from spirit. Spirit created itself first, and we came from that. And that is how energy works. We were first in spirit, and we created ourselves into the human form.
Yeah, I think that more, more educational, I'll say options. There should be a bigger light shined on different aspects of life, besides that you see like on certain social media sites and YouTube. And I think that if more people actually got out of their own way and got out of their own head, then you would have more enlightened people. And without that, you wouldn't, you know, you wouldn't see the change that you see today. So, I appreciate you for, sharing your story. It was very, very, very endearing. And I believe that without courageous people like you who take the time out to, spread good energy and at the same time help the fellow man, then we couldn't have the society that we have today outside of, all of the negativity that you see on news and media, because it's not about that. It's about building a society. That's the way it started and that's the way it should end, in my opinion.
Thank you, Terence. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I've really been, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you. I'd love to come back maybe some other time and connect in with you again.
Absolutely. I look forward to that, Soma. So, why don't you do me a favor and let the people know where they can find you. If you have any social media or anything like that that you want them to check out, and any type of handles they can follow you at as well.
Sure. My website is thepleiadianchild.com. Pleiadian is Pleiadian child.com. I have several different groups and pages on Facebook. Noonan Carol is one of them, so it's Noonan Carol, and also the Pleiadian Child. I also have a couple of groups. One is called The Great Awakening of Humanity 2020, and that's for truthers. And I really set that up when the pandemic started, for people to share information, whatever it was. So come and join that and share whatever you want to do, whatever you want to share. I also have my YouTube, which is Carol Noonan. And what else? Yeah, I also do psychic mediums. I also do psychic readings and mediumship. And if anyone has any questions, you can always email me or connect to me on, look me up on Facebook.
That's great. I appreciate that. And I'm pretty sure, once this airs, there'll be somebody to reach out to you because, not everybody actually knows that there are other people out there that sees life the same way you do and, might have had an experience that might have resonated with them, and they'll appreciate you for sharing it because they'll know that, they aren't alone in this. So again, thank you for that.
You're welcome, darling. And that's one of the things that the negative agenda does is try to indoctrinate us and manipulate us in a way where we think we are the only ones going through stuff, even if it's stuff that is rare, like or supposedly rare, like trauma or abuse. It's actually not. There's 1 in 4 people. I think the statistics are 1 in 4 people are abused or raped. That's quite high when you think of 1 in 4 people. So we need to connect. We need to start talking to each other in a very open, having open dialogues. And Yeah, if anyone has any questions, please email me or message me. I also have my book as well, The Pleiadian Child.
Okay.
And that's available on Amazon.com. This is my own. This is not for sale, but this is my own author copy.
Okay. I'll make sure I put that link in the description so people can check it out.
Thank you. Thanks. And that actually includes a section on the channeled writings that they told me when I first started to channel them. So it includes whole sections on the information that they've given to me about our true nature, about reality, about where we came from, about who we are, about why we're here. Has a lot of information on Egypt and hidden information and Nazca lines and beneath the Sphinx. And yeah, there's a lot in it.
Okay. Do you have a audiobook version by chance?
I don't have an audio, but I do have a ebook, which
Okay.
I think is, I think it's £3.77 for the ebook. I was thinking of doing an audio, but I might possibly do that in the future.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of audiobooks, and I think your voice would very help in coasting the story along that you've written. So I look forward to grabbing a copy of that.
Okay, I might do one.
That's great. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been your host, the Land of a Legend, aka Big T, and this has been another installment of the I Can't Make This Up podcast. That's I Can't for K Make This Up podcast. You can find me on all podcast streaming platforms. You can also reach me at Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. Please do me a favor and follow my guest. Check out her book and her website as well. I will have the links in the description below. And if you listen to this, make sure you follow me on all platforms or one of your liking. I appreciate your feedback on anything you liked or didn't like about my program. And if you don't like it, that's cool. Just let me know in the comments and then I'll block you. But until next time, peace.
I can't make this up. Being the wingman got me punched in the face by this crazy chick. I can't make this up. Gave this cool old man to ride home, now I'm harboring the fugitive. I can't make this up. Pinned between the fat chick and the speaker, now my shirt smell like her backside. I can't make this up. It's all bad cause my man about to get stabbed in his hand over french fries. Bet.
I'ma let T tell you that story one day, man. It's a good one.
And I'ma let the Land over Legend do the rest. I'm out.